The Queen. The Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, the Prince of Wales, the Duchess of Cornwall, and the other members of the royal family. The royal family.
Raise silence for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor.
My late Lord Mayor, Your Grace, my Lord Chancellor, Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, Your Excellencies, my Lords, Aldermen, Sheriffs, Chief Commoner, ladies and gentlemen. Claire and I, together with the Sheriffs David Wootton and Peter Cook, with their ladies, are delighted to welcome you all to Guildhall this evening, in particular you, Prime Minister, and Mrs. Brown. My late Lord Mayor, this banquet is in your honour. We are indeed fortunate that you are holding the reins in the city during an exceptionally difficult period. You have kindly wished me an easier ride this year, hoping that the time will come in my mayoralty when we can point to solid achievements. Well, I speak for us all when I can point to solid achievements in your year. You tirelessly promoted the city around the world, you supported the UK's position on the G20, and you helped rebuild confidence in the city internationally. You injected your business acumen into virtually every moment of your year, and Claire and I are grateful that you involved us so early in preparing for ours. We wish you and Lynn well for the future. I completed the New York Marathon recently. If we want to usher in a sustainable renaissance of the city, and we do, then we must have the endurance of long-distance runners, a quality not found in sprinters. So as we start the second decade of the 21st century, we must look ahead, not to next year, but to 2020, a vision for 10 years on. Having done that, we need to decide where we want to be and how we are going to get there. In looking to our future, Prime Minister, you spoke recently of the need to re-establish a contract between the city's financial institutions and the society they serve. This is right because society, the taxpayer, has just picked up an enormous bill for failings. You have also said that we urgently need to find new ways to balance out the risks between society as a whole and the financial sector. We in the City agree. For decades, the wider British public showed little interest in the City, although many enjoyed its fruits. Now everyone has a strong, sometimes angry, views on what should be done to reform or even punish us. Much of this anger has focused on bonuses. In my view, bonuses were not the root cause of the issue. Indeed, my late Lord Mayor, the chairman of the Financial Services Authority at your dinner in September, said it is impossible to overstate the importance of bonus structures in the origins of the crisis. They were, I believe, he said, much less important than huge failures in capital adequacy and liquidity regulation. Prime Minister, we in the City are delighted that you now have an agreement with more than 30 of the world's major international banks on bonuses in accordance with the G20 principles. In that light, your various suggestions for recouping the funds from the industry to repay the public subsidies and support which it has received will need to have the same international basis. We in the City want to play our full part in that process. We will want to make sure that the solution provides real benefits to taxpayers and does not stymie either a return to economic growth or our country's competitiveness. A genuinely worldwide solution is vital. Otherwise, real damage will be done to our economies. I know that you, Prime Minister, and other world leaders fully understand this. But for the man on the Clapham bendy bus, there is a very wide gulf that needs to be bridged. A tear in the fabric of society, with ordinary citizens on one side and some of the City on the other. Yes, Prime Minister, as you say, we need a new contract, a new agreement that ties both sides together, a contract which recognises, on the one hand, that the UK benefits from financial services, and on the other, that we need to do whatever it takes to serve the interests of the individual as well as those of the wider economy. As the ambassador for all UK-based financial services, the Lord Mayor's usual job is to speak for the City, often in fast-growing markets abroad. But here, in its heart, the Guildhall, I also need to speak to the City. All of us should remember that there are no longer walls that surround our citadel. We must learn from our mistakes, not only to survive, but more importantly, to thrive, to demonstrate clearly that we are a positive part of wider society, and to reform ourselves where and when needed. We have to re-establish trust between the people and financiers. We have to show that, as my personal motto says, trust can steer us, that we understand we are all citizens of the same community. We have to shoulder the responsibilities that go with it. We have to re-establish our credentials and credibility. We have to show that things are already changing. Risks need to be better identified and better understood. And we all have to be better at explaining what we do and why it matters to the economy and to society. Fortunately, we start from a pretty solid base. Many pieces of research, including the World Economic Forum's latest survey, continue to rate London as the world's leading international financial centre. This, however, does not make constructing a vision for the future any less challenging. And since that is a shared task, I want to help create the environment in which it can happen. Hence, my theme for my mayoral year is forming the future, encompassing both the ambassadorial and philanthropic work of the City. Besides banking and the social contract I have outlined, I want to mention briefly a few key areas that would help us build that future. First of all, Europe. Frankly, skepticism about Europe, or even disengagement, is yesterday's game. We need to be at the table, shaping the future, or others will shape it for us. Take the lesson we are now learning from the recent draft Alternative Investment Funds Managers Directive. The rationale for a directive of this sort was recently described by practitioners and respected research houses as being poorly constructed, ill-focused, imposing crippling costs, and premature. Yet a European Parliament rapporteur said just last week, nothing can be left out of regulations now, even if the hedge funds did not cause the crisis. Troubling words indeed. Even though there seems to be general agreement that neither the outbreak nor the severity of the financial crisis was due to a lack of harmonization of EU banking regulations. What should we make of the proposals for a European Systemic Risk Board and a European Banking Authority, both of which would have far-reaching powers? Could they be interpreted, like the directive, as an attempt by our European competitors to challenge London's supremacy by raising costs? The House of Commons Treasury Committee echoed our thoughts